Hey folks, welcome to another edition of My Car Guru. If you're anything like me, which I'm sure there are some people out there that are, and maybe a lot of them are men, maybe some women, I'm not discriminating here. Do you have to know how things work? Do you need more information? Or is it just acceptable to you that it does work? I'm one of those guys that, okay, I see, it works. I like it. How's it work? What makes it go? That's how I learned a lot about engines. When I first started in this business, well, really not full-time in 1978, but before that, when I was working during my college years and high school, if I saw a technician tearing an engine apart, I just wanted to go in and ask him questions. And even after I got out of college, when I always wore a shirt and tie, my dad kind of insisted on it in those early days, before things got less formal. And I was in the shop doing just that. I was watching one of my technicians, and he was attaching a backing plate onto what was that? I think it was a transfer case for four-wheel drive. And so back then they used this material that you squeeze out of tubes. It was like epoxy, or it's a gasket basically material. It's rubberized, but it comes out liquid, then it dries. And so you put it all around the edge of the two components that are going together, and then you put the screws in, tighten it up. Well, I was standing on the other side watching him. He's tightening down these screws with an air wrench. And all of a sudden, I hear a pop and feel a searing pain in my left breast. And also happened to look down right after it happened, and on my pink shirt and my new tie, I had red rubberized sealer all over me. And well, he started laughing instantly because it was pretty funny. I was in pain. I literally was shot with a piece of metal from about 2 or 3 feet away. Just imagine if that had hit me in the eye, but it didn't. Hit me in the chest and embarrassed me a little bit. But I didn't know what happened until we looked at the back of the case of the transfer case. And when he had tightened that down, it created so much pressure that it blew the back of that aluminum case off. Just one little piece where the screw had pushed down hard enough to create that pressure, and it busted loose and it shot me. Now, I'd like to have $1 for every time that story was told at my expense after that. But anyway, I did learn a lesson. I learned a lesson about where to stand when somebody is doing something like that. You know, there are so many different ways to get hurt in a service department. It is not an easy job. I respect people with tremendous technical knowledge, the amount of risk that is involved. But, they've learned over time how to minimize that risk. I had it early on when front-wheel drive vehicles came out. The first front-wheel drive vehicle it wasn't the first. The Olds Toronado was the first General Motors vehicle that was front-wheel drive. They were building front-wheel drive vehicles back in the 30s, late 20s and early 30s. A company called Cord, all of their vehicles were front-wheel drive. But still, front-wheel drive was new to General Motors in the late 70s and early 80s. Well, Chevrolet comes out with this incredible masterpiece called the Chevy Citation. I'm joking. I'm not joking that they came out with it. I'm joking that it was a masterpiece, because it was not. And it was something totally new, because when my technicians would raise the hood, instead of the engine being mounted longitudinally front to back, it was side to side, transverse mounted engine. And instead of using a typical engine and then having the transmission behind it, the transmission sat below the engine. And they didn't call it transmission anymore. It was called a transaxle, because the transmission and the axle were made together. Well, you can imagine if you have the engine and the transmission, it's all mounted in front of the firewall, in front of the driver, it's going to change the weight distribution of the vehicle. And in essence, 60 to 65% of the weight was over the front wheels. And another interesting phenomenon that had really, well, I guess the engineers considered it, but we didn't, was that when you have that much front weight over the wheels, then, and plus the front wheels are doing the driving now, no longer is the power being sent to the rear wheels, it's all being done up front. That's a lot to ask for a set of tires on the front. I mean, they've got to do the steering, they've got to do 70% of the braking, and all of the power that gets to the road goes through the front end. That's a lot. And so we had to change our recommendations as far as like tire rotations are concerned, because since the front tires are going to be handling all of that and dealing with all the extra weight, they're going to wear out sooner. And early on, we had customers that, they were used to rotating their tires every 6,000 miles. We had folks wearing out tires in 25,000 miles when they were used to their tires lasting for 50 or 60,000 miles in some cases. Rear-wheel drive vehicles aren't as hard on tires as front-wheel drive vehicles are. And see, most vehicles that are on the road today are front-wheel drive. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important to rotate your tires every time you get your oil changed. And I recommend the oil change at 5,000 miles and get your tires rotated at the same time. Maintain pressures in between the time that you get your tires rotated, and your tires will last 40, 50,000 miles. Fail to do that, and you're buying a set of tires for $1,000 to $2,000 every 25,000 miles. You don't want to do that. But see, that's one of the many things that we learned. One of my technicians learned it the hard way at the old Chevy store. He put, first time he'd ever changed the oil on a Chevy Citation, it was a V6 model. And I think we had started selling them just 3 to 6 months earlier. And he put it up on a lift. It was an in-ground lift, but it had these 2 arms, or 4 arms that basically reach out from the posts to lift the vehicle up. So he had it balanced there like he thought he was supposed to. And he went to his toolbox, which was right in front of the front bumper, and was getting some tools. And as he moved to his left to turn to go back to the vehicle started to move forward. Again, it's 8 feet in the air. It moves forward, and then in a very suddenly completely slides off of the lift and into the toolbox where he was standing just seconds before. Another valuable lesson, a lesson about weight distribution. You had to put a front-wheel drive vehicle on the lift differently than he had ever done before, and that could have cost him his life. And that happened just 2 stalls down from where I was shot. But knock on wood, that was the last time that a vehicle ever fell off a lift in my 47-year career. And that was about 3 years in to my career when those wonderful Citations came out. But there were a lot more front-wheel drive vehicles to come, and there were a lot of learning curves involved in dealing with that. And I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, I am back. Just as a reminder, send me a text to 423-552-2020, and I'll forward you a copy of the My Car Guru guidebook, which will, it's helping people save money already. I mean, I've had multiple folks tell me that they've downloaded the guidebook, they've gone shopping, and it has saved them money, a lot of money in many cases. So 423-552-2020, send me your email address, and I'll forward you a copy of the My Car Guru guidebook. It is totally free, by the way, but it's worth a lot more than that. So, learning curves. What do you really need to know fundamentally about your vehicle? You don't need to know exactly how the engine works. I do, and people of my ilk need to know stuff like that. How a transmission works. What's the difference between a regular transmission with gears in it versus a CVT transmission? These are things that you have to be aware of because of the life cycle of those particular types of components. You want something that's going to last, especially if you're one of those people that are hard on car dealers and you buy a car, wear it completely out, take it to the junkyard, and then go buy another car. You may buy a new vehicle every 10 to 15 years. Bless you. I think that's wonderful. It's probably the most sound advice you could give to anybody is just buy a car and wear it out. But most people don't operate that way. They hit 100,000 miles, they think it's time to trade, even though the life cycle for that vehicle could be 300,000 miles. They don't want a vehicle that has that many miles on it. They want to take advantage of the latest safety advances, which that does advance a lot. Haven't seen a whole lot in safety as far as advances in the last 5 years or so. I mean, the latest was the automatic braking and the cross-traffic alert and the lane-keeping technology and the hands-free driving, if you want to call that safe. I'm not sure exactly whether it is or not, but those are some of the latest safety advances. Crash worthiness, I don't know that we're going to really advance the ball any further in terms of getting hit with another vehicle, broadside or offset frontal impact. I think we're pretty much there as far as the technology is concerned. So the next level seems to be AI and what it's going to be able to do as far as being installed in our vehicles and keep us from hitting each other. Keep intersections safe. That could be the number one thing right there. If they would just figure out a way to cure stupidity when it comes to intersections. Have smart traffic lights that communicate with vehicles that force them to stop. You do that, you eliminate, I would say, 50% of all traffic accidents. The rest of them, curing our recklessness, is to, I know, they're taking away our freedoms, but if there's a speed limit, then the speed limit sign changes. My car knows when the speed limit has changed. It says it right there on my screen. And when the speed limit changes, my car slows down. I don't have the power to exceed the speed limit. How about that one? How would you feel about that? Do you drive over the speed limit? I do. Just ask my wife. I'm probably on city streets. I might be 5 to 10 miles per hour over just because it feels right. It's not because I'm intentionally breaking the law. That's just how fast I'm going. I'll see a speed limit sign. I'll look over and then look at my speedometer and I'll say, whoops. But do I slow down? No, usually not. What about interstates? In Tennessee, I think there's some that have 75 mile per hour speed limits. Maybe, I'm not sure. I can't remember because I don't pay attention to them. I mean, I'm looking at my speedometer. If I'm doing less than 80, I'm good on the interstate. The sad thing is I'm being passed left and right. If I'm in the middle lane, I'm being passed on both sides. Cars flying by at 90 and 95 miles an hour. It's just the way it is on the interstate. What if the car wouldn't go faster than the speed limit? And then on 2-lane roads, twisty roads, whatever, your car would, if it went off the road, it would automatically correct itself. If there were lines painted on the outside edge of the road and lines in the middle, the car would stay between those lines. And the only thing that I would hate to give up is the ability to steer the car because I enjoy driving. I wonder what percentage of the people would be fine with a self-driving car. Something that just picks them up at the house. They get in. There's no steering wheel in it. And if they're elderly, they don't have to worry about being able to see or being able to react quick enough. It would just take them straight to the doctor's office, let them out, go out in the parking lot and park. When they come back out, the car would come fetch them. Doors would open up. They can get in the car, and it would take them home or take them wherever they need to go. I can see that that is a great thing for society, but I also dread it. It's coming. I mean, it's going to happen, don't you think? It's inevitable. The only people that will be on the roads will be people driving antique cars, if they'll let us still drive on the road. And then if we want to do any high-performance driving, hopefully they won't outlaw that and we'll be able to go to a track. And that's if you want to drive over the speed limit, if you want to get, in excess of 80 miles an hour, then you got to go to a racetrack. And that's where we can, get our frustrations out. If people would just not take their frustrations out on others with the car. How often do you see that happen too? I see it a lot where, somebody's behind you and they don't think you're going fast enough. So what do? They tailgate you. And then they do a NASCAR move and they look like they're going to clip your left corner of your vehicle, but they just barely miss it, zoom past you. Some of them give you the stink eye when they're going by, and others might shake their fist. And then they'll swoop down in front of you just to make sure you realize that you made them angry and they're going to get in front of you now. I see a lot of that. I see probably as much of that as I see people swerving all over the road because they're looking at their cell phones. And that's usually women. I'm sorry. I hope I don't offend you, but most of the people, this is just based on my observations, that I see looking down at a cell phone or swerving around on the road are females. And most of the men are the ones driving too fast, especially if they're in a Ram pickup truck. I don't know what it is about men who drive Ram trucks, but they're the fastest drivers, and the second fastest drivers are ladies in black Escalades or Chevy Suburbans. And the slowest drivers are little old men in Buick Encores. Okay, so I hope I haven't lost half my audience with those comments. Everybody's entitled to an opinion, and really, your opinion should not, offend other people because it's just your opinion. It doesn't have to be theirs. They don't have to feel like you're trying to change their opinion. So that's mine, and I'm sticking with it. But when it comes to other things that you need to know about your vehicle, come on, folks. Raise the hood on your vehicle. That's where there's a lot of money underneath that hood. And if you don't know how to check certain things, certain basic fundamental things, then you're relying on other people for something that's really your responsibility. Do you know how to check your oil? Do you even know where the dipstick is or what a dipstick is? Most people don't anymore. It used to be such a common thing because cars were very simple. We did have to have our oil changed more often because of the quality of the oil and the way the engines were designed. So people were more in tune with that. And they're just not anymore. When you open the hood on a lot of vehicles, you don't see the engine. You see a bunch of plastic that covers the engine. But there's a couple things that are still visible. And doggone it, they're your responsibility. The oil level, even something as simple as the windshield washer solvent, your coolant overflow tank, your power steering fluid, brake fluid, transmission fluid if it's a serviceable transmission, which some aren't, unless you get up underneath the car. Yeah, you need to know how to check these things, and you need to do it at regular intervals. I actually had a customer complaining because his vehicle was using a quart of oil every 1,500 miles. I would complain also, even though that's still within the factory specifications at that time, which I did not understand. But imagine if that oil level had gotten to 2 quarts low or 3 quarts low, because he didn't get his oil changed but every 6,000 or 8,000 miles. Would an oil light have come on? Probably. Could he tell anything by looking at his oil pressure gauge, which is on some vehicles? Maybe, if he was paying attention, didn't have pictures of his grandkids all the way across the dashboard, which a lot of people do. Our cars are becoming just an extension of our house. I guess for some unfortunate people, the car is their house. But as a car dealer, I see all different types. I see vehicles come in here that are nicer and cleaner than any new vehicle that I have on my lot, because that's just the way the people are. They take care of their stuff. And I see others come in, it looks like literally they've been living in their vehicle. It is a dump of just all kinds of garbage and McDonald's bags and things like that. It's just unbelievable. You open up the door on some people's cars and you said, do I really have to ride in this to see if everything's okay so that we can trade for it? You don't want to touch the steering wheel. How do people live like that? I don't know. But I know that it costs them money. And I know when people come in to trade cars and they have an otherwise pretty nice car with the right equipment, everything looks good except it's nasty and they haven't taken care of it. You know, the message to the appraiser's brain is, well, what else do I need to look for? You know, has this car had the oil change? I wonder if it's had any regular maintenance. He starts second guessing everything, and then he knocks off an extra $1,500 or $2,000 off of what he was going to put into that car, just simply because of the extra detailing that's going to have to be done and the unknowns. So don't do that. Okay, I'll be back in just 1 minute. I know sometimes I get in a lecturing mode. Can't help myself because I'm trying to improve your car life. I'm trying to help you get maximum dollars for what you own. And also kind of head off some type of major mechanical failure. You know, and some of them you can't help. If there's a big recall, of course the manufacturer's going to pay for that. But if you just stick to your owner's manual and follow the maintenance schedule, if you have a problem and you're out of warranty, more than likely the manufacturer will step up and help. They may not pay for everything. I mean, if you're 25,000 miles out of warranty and you have a major component failure and it wasn't your fault, you did everything you were supposed to do. You had the vehicle maintained at the dealership, which is critically important, not going to the fast lube place, going back to the dealership. You were a loyal customer. You're either going to you might get the parts paid for, you might get the labor paid for, you might get a percentage, maybe the manufacturer, even though it's out of warranty, will pay for 50% of it. A lot of that has to do with how you approach it when you go into the dealership. If you're nice and cordial and you have your evidence, then you know they're going to try everything they can to help you because they want to keep you as a customer. And so does the manufacturer. If you're driving a Chevrolet, he wants to keep you in a Chevrolet. If you're driving a Ford, same thing. Now, I can tell you that the import brands are a lot more stingy when it comes to after-warranty repairs, especially companies like Hyundai and Kia. But some of the others are pretty bad too. I mean, if you're out of warranty, you're done. Now, with Nissan, we've found that they've been very lenient for people who are, of course, we're a Nissan dealer, but they are very lenient with people who have been loyal customers and had their vehicle serviced at the dealership, at a Nissan dealership, because they recognize the fact that it's, you know, that thing shouldn't break at that mileage. And these people are good customers, and we want to keep them in a Nissan. That's the right kind of attitude to have. So hopefully you're doing business with that kind of a brand. If you need any advice from me, you know how to get me. Call my cell phone. It's the only one I have, 423-552-2020, or send me an email to LennyLawson2020@gmail.com, and I'll see you next time.